Hi there and welcome to the channel of A Disappointed Man with me, Jason Kennedy, the Disappointed Man. And it is Tuesday, so that means tags. And this week I have been tagged by the wonderful Jim over at Jim's Books Reading and Stuff. And this is a tag he created himself, link in the description below. It's all about New York City. There are 9 prompts, so let's begin. 1. What is your favourite book set in or around New York? So I've chosen 3 here. I didn't find it easy to be sure of which books I've read are set in New York. So then I came up with the smart idea of thinking about the titles. And yes, then I found 2 straight away. The first is The New York Trilogy by Auster. And this is quite a special book for me because he was for a while my favourite writer when I was about 18, and this book really did blow me away. It's a kind of existential crime novel, you know, where the detective halfway through discovers that the crime never happened, the criminals don't exist, and he himself is a figment of his own imagination. It's that kind of thing. I thought that was amazing when I was 18, and then I devoured his other novels and was similarly impressed. My interest in his work has waned in the days since then, but yes, there's one New York novel I was particularly struck by. The second one is Jonathan Lethem's Motherless Brooklyn. See, it's in the title, right? Brooklyn. And this is a great book. I read it just a few years ago. He's probably one of the only writers working who is genuinely entitled to be described as a genius. And the central figure in this novel is an orphan growing up in the eponymous Brooklyn, and it's all about his involvement in some underworld activities, but he has Tourette's, so it's full of real linguistic energy. And after you've read it, actually, you'll go around with the tags from this Tourette's character in your head for days and weeks afterwards. I'm not even going to let myself think of any of them because they will haunt me for the next week or so. But my favourite New York book is Junkie by William S. Burroughs, his debut novel. And it just takes you, like Motherless Brooklyn actually, right inside the seamy underworld of New York and introduces you to the drug addicts, the dope fiends, the hustlers around Times Square. And the writing in it is wonderful. In fact, I'm going to crack it open and just read you Burroughs' description of when he first encounters Herbie Hunker. It goes like this. After Joey went out, I noticed another man who was standing there looking at me. Waves of hostility and suspicion flowed out from his large brown eyes, like some sort of television broadcast. The effect was almost like a physical impact. The man was small and very thin, his neck loose in the collar of his shirt. His complexion was fading from brown to a mottled yellow, and pancake makeup had been heavily applied in an attempt to conceal a skin eruption. His mouth was drawn down at the corners in a grimace of petulant annoyance. The whole book crackles with this kind of paranoid energy. It was a very daring book, actually, for its time, because it stripped away all the moralizing about drug addiction and just presented you with the reality. It stands alongside Thomas de Quincey's Confessions of an English Opium Eater as one of the best books ever about drug use. Next one. New York is famous for its skyscrapers. What is the highest building you have been up? Well, Taiwan has the Taipei 101, which, as the name suggests, has 101 floors. And I've been to the observation deck on the 89th floor. Actually, the view is not that impressive. Taipei City is surrounded by mountains, so you can obtain a similar view just by going to the top of one of them, like Elephant Mountain, for example. But what was really amazing was the damper inside. This is a 660-ton pendulum, and it stabilizes the building during the high winds. Taiwan has a typhoon season each year, so there we are, 101 floors. Next. New York, New York, so good they named it twice. What is the last book you reread? Well, my answer here is very simple and straightforward. It's Prater Violet by Christopher Isherwood, and I reread it so I can do a review for the channel. Okay, next. American Psycho was a disturbing novel set in New York. What is the most disturbing book you have read? I would have to say it is a book by Dennis Cooper, who, when he emerged, was looking as if he might be the next William S. Burroughs. So I was truly intrigued to get into his writing, but unfortunately, it just kind of veered off into books that were so violent but directionless that it became a kind of pornography, and I just put them down then. So there it is, it's Dennis Cooper, but in no way take that as a recommendation. Next, where were you when you heard the news about 9/11? I was on a country estate, the one where my art school was located, and I was teaching web design and how to produce graphics to some little old ladies there. And my boss came along at the end of the day and he told me what had happened, and I was absolutely shocked. I was stunned into silence, but I remember my response in the car on the way back into town. I just said, "Oh, this means war." And then I went home and watched all the coverage on TV. Yes, that day lives long in the memory. Next, what is your favorite movie set in New York? I had to have a real think about this one. So like the favorite books, I've chosen 3 and I'll count them down. Now you do have to remember that it said set in New York, not necessarily filmed there. And that is true of my number 3, Escape from New York, which was actually filmed in St. Louis, Missouri. It's John Carpenter's dystopian sci-fi movie with Kurt Russell. And I just love the world of this movie. Yes, particular favorite. Number 2 is The Usual Suspects. This is also very important on a personal level to me. It was when I got my first car. It was the first movie I went out to see, and I was just blown away by the performances, particularly of Kevin Spacey, who I understand is now in disgrace, but also the detective who's trying to catch him. That was a great watch. But my number 1, I did not even know it was set in New York because almost all of the action takes place inside in TV studios, and that is Network from 1976. Now, even if you don't know the title of the movie, the picture I've put up there may be enough to make you realize that it's lodged in your memory, it's part of the culture. And I would say, along with Orwell's 1984, this movie has had the most powerful influence on me, or it kind of most reflects my view of the 20th and 21st century, that power and truth are fundamentally incompatible. And a huge amount of effort goes into concealing and preventing the dissemination of this basic fact. In Network, Howard Beale is trying to explain the power of television through the medium of television, just as in 1984, Orwell is trying to explain the power of language through language. Another movie that tackles the same theme is John Carpenter's They Live, which I'm also a huge admirer of. Have you been to New York? When was the last time you visited New York? So my answer here is no, yes, almost, because I have been to JFK Airport and I did stay overnight in an airport hotel, but I had absolutely no desire, I don't know why, to try and get myself into New York City. I just slept, returned to the airport and flew onwards to Guatemala. So I guess I've been as close as one can get to New York City without actually going there. Who is your favorite painter from New York, or what is your favorite painting of New York? Okay, so this artist is not actually from New York. He was born in Pennsylvania, I believe, but that would be true of many artists that we associate with New York, such as Andy Warhol, and it is Keith Haring. I'm a huge admirer of Keith Haring's work. I'll link in the description below to an interview with him that I particularly like. He's on some kind of community TV channel, and he's being interviewed by a very stiff, conservative couple who clearly don't really know much about art and are just doing their jobs. But the way he conducts himself, he's so humble, he's so sincere and talks about what he's doing. They really warm to him as it goes on, just as you, the viewer, will warm to Keith. He also collaborated with William S. Burroughs on their Apocalypse project, and I was fortunate enough to see this in person when his exhibition, Plexism, a terrible name really, came to Taiwan, and me and my wife went to visit. I'll show you a picture from Apocalypse Now full screen. Yes. So Keith Haring is my choice there. Taken from us far too soon. Last one. What is your favourite song about New York? Now, Jim actually chose possibly my favourite song about New York, First We Take Manhattan by Leonard Cohen. There's also Fairy Tale of New York, the Pogues featuring Kirsty MacColl, but I've gone with John Lennon's Mind Games. John Lennon really found a home for himself in New York City. He loved that place and the people there loved him. And particularly moving for me is the video for this song. It's just John dressed as a kind of wizard, and he was actually just a magical person, and he's wandering through Central Park and being mobbed by children and feeding the animals and doing some silly dancing. It's a slice of pure magic. So there we have it. I've finished. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. All that remains is for me to bid you farewell until the next time. Be safe, be strong, nanu nanu.